joining us now at the Bloomberg Google Hangout in the middle of the U.S.-Africa Business Forum at the Mandarin Hotel in Washington, D.C. We've got Blackstone founder Steve Schwarzman and Aliko Dangote of Dangote Industries here to announce a deal, and also on the Google Hangout, Brian Herlihy from Rhino, which is a company that's been formed by Blackstone. We're going to talk about this new deal. Mr. Schwarzman, Mr. Dangote, could you tell me a little bit about this new pact you have in Africa today that you're announcing? Big money.
Well, we think it's reasonably sized money. It's $5 billion, dedicated 50-50 from each of us. So it's a total of $5 billion to build power plants, distribution, and pipelines in Africa. And we both think that this is a great opportunity to try and make a dent in the 70% of the people in sub-Saharan Africa who don't have power, don't have electricity, something that's very difficult to comprehend if you're from the developed world. So we formed this partnership because we've done, and Blackstone, about $25 billion of greenfield projects. Aliko Dangote, who you will hear, is perhaps the best known, most successful entrepreneurial businessman on the continent of Africa. And for us, going into Africa alone, we've done one or two major projects, is very difficult without a partner who's one of the most accomplished people with great personal instincts and great credibility, who can help take advantage of these types of opportunities. So we each bring something to the party, and like all partnerships, the other one thinks that what they're bringing is more important than what they're bringing. And so we're very excited about doing this.
Mr. Dangote, what is the importance of power, or should I say the lack of power? What does that mean for so many hundreds of millions of Africans on a personal level, but even for business? You've been very successful with your business. What does that lack of power mean in terms of trying to get business done?
Well, when you look at it, lack of power, it is something that I think is really very, very critical. There's actually no way for you to be able to even do any business without power. Why did we become very successful in Dangote Group? We became successful because we had to generate our own power in almost all the various areas where we have production. As at now, if you look at the growth of Africa has been at about 5.5% over the last decade. But this trajectory, it is actually without power, and there is actually no growth without power. Today I gave an example of there are some areas. I know a state, for example, where I come from, we have 32 megawatts to be shared among 20 million people. There is actually no way you can make anything happen with only 32 megawatts to be shared among 20 million people. So I think with this partnership is going to really help to unleash these potentials. Number one, we'll be able to gain quite a lot in terms of inclusive and also progressive continuous growth of Africa. Today, Africa needs much more in terms of power than anything else. And I think there are quite a lot of issues in terms of infrastructure. In a place like Nigeria, yes, we have potentially 260 trillion cubic feet of gas. But what we have, which is being consumed to generate power, is less than 1 billion cubic feet of gas. So we need to do quite a lot. This investment is going to really help quite a lot. And I'm really very pleased that we have agreed with Blackstone to invest a total of $5 billion, which is between the two of us at 50-50. And I think really this will unleash a lot of growth within the sub-Saharan Africa. It will show a very quick result, and we are very serious and determined to take it to the next level.
What are you looking at for a return on your investment?
Well, I think the kinds of returns for greenfield generally are quite high. They'd be normal private equity type returns. And as to your last question, how much more can you grow if you have power? That most economists would say you could add 200 to 300 basis points, or 2 to 3% to a country's growth rate. So if you're growing at 5.5, that takes you to 7.5 or 8.5, which is an astonishing level of growth. And that's without further innovation in the infrastructure of other parts of the economy, but just from being able to have the right amount of electricity. In certain countries, they brown out. The electricity fails about 50 to 60 days a year. It's really a very difficult way to grow an economy. And they've still grown at 5.5.
Brian, what are you looking at in terms of particular projects? Is this one big project? Are you looking for a variety of different projects to fund here?
Yes, the connection's bad, but we look at the opportunity really in both the power sector and the pipeline sector. You have a huge requirement for fuel supply as well for power, and the gas aggregation opportunity in Nigeria is a tremendous opportunity. You're really seeing a reflection point in Africa where the African markets and the international capital markets are starting to match up in their needs from a risk-reward perspective. And this is really what's letting us partner with excellent people like Aliko Dangote, where we've seen him pave a way and really move from a high-cost capital into the best operating models in the world and become competitive worldwide. We're able to replicate that and follow him on a power perspective as well.
Mr. Dangote, I want to ask you about American investment. This whole conference, the U.S.-Africa Business Forum and the larger summit are about encouraging U.S. investment in Africa. And I want to know why U.S. investment is more attractive, or maybe more attractive than other dollars from China or dollars from Europe or various other places around the world. What's so good about the U.S. dollar or the U.S. investment?
Well, the good thing about U.S. investment is that, they have deep pockets, and I think if they believe in what they are doing, they are comfortable, they will put a lot of money into this sort of process. But I think they are going to bring quite a lot of innovations, training of our people. It's not all about just coming in there to collect our raw materials. Exporting of raw materials does not really add much value. What will help to generate local capacity, to also create wealth, and also to make sure that our growth is sustained, apart from getting up to 7.5%, is also going to be sustained for the next decade. I think the American investment will bring quite, it will bring a lot of this thing, where it will create jobs both here, it will create jobs in America, it will create jobs in all the other African countries. So they're bringing quite a lot. But key is that we want to let Americans to understand what is this whole African story is all about. Because the information that they have is not an up-to-date information. And right now, people like, Steve, they have 100% believe in African story. And that's why they are partnering with us to put down their $2.5 billion, which are also putting 2.5. That's $5 billion. And this is really one of the largest I've ever had, even myself.
Mr. Schwarzman, do you have any concerns about stability, about some of the problems that have plagued various African nations over time in terms of corruption? We see terrorism, even in Nigeria, one of the strongest economies. We've seen the rise of Boko Haram lately. Why aren't you worried about that risk, or what mitigates your concern about that risk?
Well, I worry about risk all the time. One of the reasons we got from having no assets 29 years ago to having close to $300 billion now is because we worry. And the first rule of investing money is don't lose it. It's great to make a lot, but don't lose it. And each of the issues that you mentioned is a concern. But each of them has to be evaluated in the location where you're operating. Not all places are right for us. Some places are right for us. Sometimes you have to negotiate individual arrangements that take care of some of those risks. So we think there's enough precondition for success in Africa to do this, but it's a reasonably high bar.
What does that mean, the individual things that you have to do to take care of some of the risks?
Well, you have to have certain approaches to rule of law, and those types of things, and protections that go with rule of law are sort of a sine qua non. And sometimes countries are almost there, and you want them to be there. And that's how you attract capital. It's not about us. We're just generic in that sense. And in the evolution of countries, there's a time where they make a decision that, yes, we have to do this, and this is the way, sort of best practices in different parts of the world. And if countries are committed to that, it's a much better and acceptable place to be investing.
And as far as the partnership goes, where do you see, Mr. Dangote, where do you see the thrust of that being? Where do you see, do you have a vision already about where you want to increase power around the continent?
Oh yeah, we do. We already have mapped out some few countries where we're going to invest, and I'm sure these countries, they have quite a lot of deficit. I mean, if you look at today in Nigeria, by fixing the gas infrastructure alone, is going to actually unleash a lot of potential. So, I mean, there's quite a lot. We have that. We are looking at Togo. We are looking at areas in East Africa. The whole of sub-Saharan Africa will actually, be our key markets, of which we are going to really invest. Mind you, yes, 5 billion sounds quite a lot, but in terms of the deficit in infrastructure, especially in power, is enormous. But we'll try our best, and I'm sure once we see that things are going well, we'll add more money.
You think you'll be able to attract investment from other investors, or are you looking at adding more of your own later on?
Well, at the moment, we have enough resources of our own to do this. But the interesting thing about a place like Africa is if countries have the right preconditions for investment and the returns are right, it's easy to attract large amounts of money. And what's most important is that the early projects have success. If they're successful and you can go to other sources of money, then people are very happy to do that. When it's just in the adventure category, as you can see by the size of some of the funds that have been raised, $500, $700 million in the world that we tend to invest in is not a large fund for an entire continent. You could raise much, much larger amounts of money as soon as people start to be comfortable that this is a safe place that yields very good returns. So this is evolutionary, but capital will show up, and always does, when there's successful investments to be done.
Great. Thank you very much, Steve Schwarzman of Blackstone, joining us, Brian Herlihy of Black Rhino, and Aliko Dangote of Dangote Industries. Thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate you talking about this huge deal, $5 billion, 2.5 from each of you. We'll be back from the Bloomberg Google Hangout here at the Mandarin Hotel in the middle of the U.S. Africa Business Summit in just a moment.